This video was actually meant to be released during Primitive War's actual heyday and when the movie released. But given that I couldn't have watched the film, and when I could watch, the hype had already died down, I really didn't have an incentive to release this video. So keep that in mind. Good! One of the most underrated theropods in Jurassic World defeat the star of Primitive War. In today's video, we're gonna be seeing which of these mega theropods would win in a fight to the death. But since people have a problem with power scaling, we're not gonna use that. We're gonna be going really with just is told and what's shown about both of these characters. You can kinda say this is realistic, but well, with that covered, let's get into it. Let's begin with size. How big are each of our combatants? Zeb consistently has plenty of statements, placing its weight at about 9.2 tons and about 16 meters in length. As for Primitive War T.rex, he's about 8 tons and roughly 15 meters long. In terms of raw size, Zeb is really superior in this regard, but size isn't everything, so let's move on to actual strength. Each of our combatants has better showings of physical strength and raw power. Let's begin with Zeb. Given that his whole narrative is about how much of an absolute unit he is, we'll need to look at what creatures he upscales and what creatures he's stronger than. So let's take a look at Rexy. Well, Rexy is usually called a fraud, but to the people who actually do research, we'll find out something very interesting. Rexy is able to lift up the Indominus Rex. Regardless of which metric for weight you actually use for the Indominus, this is actually quite impressive, and would put her on the same level as even the Primitive War Rex, which, to be fair, never really did much in terms of lifting power. But at the same time, Rexy herself was constantly getting overpowered by the Giganotosaurus. No matter what she did, she was always getting her ass handed to her in terms of raw physical strength, which she could not really compete. The Primitive War Tyrannosaurus can somewhat lift up a helicopter and technically overpower it despite actually trying to achieve flight. This isn't really impressive given that choppers aren't really heavy. They are relatively light, at least for their weight, so she isn't really putting as much force into it. So it's very clear, Zeb takes this one. Speed is blatantly not even close. Giga was able to run at a Jeep, which was probably going within 30 miles per hour. This is consistent as he's constantly stated to be able to run at such speed. Impressive, I know, and Primitive War Rex doesn't really have any actual feat to back up that, so unfortunately he kinda just eats dust. Next we'll talk battle IQ. For starters, we're just gonna go with what is shown, and since I couldn't find any actual thing for the Primitive War T-Rex beyond the actual weight, we're gonna assume that the T-Rex should be somewhat capable of combating creatures like the Spinosaurus we see in the film, which, to be fair, is actually quite impressive. However, Zeb has been able to defeat Tyrannosaurus, which are roughly within their 30s. Rexy, Buck, and Doe are all within the same age range, and yet not even they could defeat actual Zeb in combat. So in terms of actual experience, I'd like to entertain the idea that maybe this Tyrannosaurus is like on his 30s, but so were Buck and Doe, and they were both defeated by Zeb. So yeah, Zeb takes experience as well. In terms of actual bite force, I would reckon that this is actually ironic, and I would say that they are actually comparable. Both have been shown on screen being able to deform metal structures, to a very impressive degree actually. So, in terms of bite force, they both would be able to inflict the same amount of damage to each other. Zeb would kinda need more time to apply the full force, but still, it's something that realistically he should be capable of doing due to his much higher speed and actually much impressive physical strength. In terms of weaponry, Primitive War T-Rex is kinda whatever. Most of the things performed on screen are just accomplished by their jaws. Any other feat is mostly incidental, and they don't really demonstrate any other actual capacity to use other parts of their body as weapons, at least not actively so. Zeb, on the other hand, has demonstrated quite easily to be able to use his whole body as a weapon, or using it as a battery ram, or using his actual tail in order to overpower Rexy and send even her 9-ton body flailing to the screen. So yeah, it's not really close, Zeb takes another one. So, with all that covered, who do I think wins? Drumroll please. Yeah, Zeb wins. Zeb is not only much faster, more experienced, physically stronger, he has more than one way of actually fighting the primitive war Tyrannosaurus. And while both kind of draw in terms of actual bite force, Zeb actually just has the better tools and leverage to actually put his bite force to good use. So no matter which ways you put it, you actually can't deny the fact that Zeb is more powerful than primitive war T.rex. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you for checking out. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.